At this point, we're like 4 years deep into dark romance. The lines are so blurred. Spice just keeps coming and coming and pardon the pun. There's this scene in a graveyard and I can't even say that stuff on the internet. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and hello if you're new here. I'm so glad that you have joined. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the spiciest books that I have ever read. So over the years, this stack of books, which honestly, it looks like a lot, but it's not really a lot considering how many books I've read over the last, when did I really get into reading? I would say like 4 years ago, and since then I've read 400 plus books, and I've only got 17 books here to discuss because these are the spiciest books that I have ever read. Ever. So, we're going to go through them. I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of the books, and all of these are obviously 5 out of 5 on the spice scale, and quite a lot of these books I actually haven't even read that recently, like I read a long time ago. Look, I read like 80% spicy books, or maybe 90. Potentially like maybe 95 is maybe more fair. 95 is more fair to say. 95% spicy books, but not because I need spice in my books. Like, I don't seek it out. I don't mind reading it. I don't mind reading complete closed door romance either. Like, if there's no spice in it whatsoever, for example, the Magnolia Parks universe is one of my god tier series ever of my whole entire life, and there is no spicy scenes in that at all. It is all closed door romance. I don't need spice in my books. I don't buy books just because somebody says they're really spicy, but I'm also really open to most things. Like, I really don't mind trigger lists and trigger warning lists. I don't mind reading about different kind of kinks and like all that kind of stuff. I'm really open when it comes to my romance books. I don't care what I read, but I don't actively seek it out. Like, most books I read, yeah, they contain some spice in them, but are they spicy as hell? No. Like, I would say most of the time, on average, that's not what I'm reading on a day-to-day basis. I do find that when I do get a 5 out of 5 on the spice scale book, it is a journey, and I feel like I need a bit of a break after that. So don't mind me, I've got a match for this because I feel like I'm going to be talking a lot. I'll be completely honest and tell you guys whether I feel like these books have enough balance of spice and plot, or whether they are just complete straight up smut, and that's what you're getting yourself in for. I also don't mind that either, to be honest. I don't want that all the time. I do like a lot of plot of my stories, especially when they're this spicy. I do find that I need like really good connection between the characters and stuff, because otherwise I'm just like, what is going on right now? But let's get into the spiciest books I've ever read, up to date as of August 2025, because I'm sure there's going to be more. So first up, and this is actually one of my favourite books. This is actually it's a duology. This is one of my favourite duets ever, but it is also one of the spiciest books I've ever read. I read this 3 years ago, and it is The Losers Duet by Harley LaRue. So this is book 1 and 2. Literally Losers part 1 and part 2. There is also a novella called The Dare, which I believe is actually under my bed, so I didn't get that out, which is a prequel to this, which you definitely should read before. I think it just gives you so much more background. You should definitely grow into them. But I to this day, I'm obsessed with this book and these characters. So this basically follows our FMC, Jess, or Jessica, and she's in school and she's the popular girl in school. And the 4 boys in this, and yes, this is a why choose romance, the 4 men in this are essentially the misfits in the school, and she is their bully. She was their bully. But throughout these books, you get a lot of flashback scenes where she has shared intimate and special moments, not even spicy intimate moments, just really cute moments with them, like in school or outside of school, where you can tell that they have this connection, and she isn't the girl that she's pretending to be. She's not this fancy, like, popular, like, arrogant, nasty girl. That's not who Jessica is, like, at her core. She is more like the misfit boys, essentially. This book is spicy because it has just in terms of the spicy scenes in general, there is a lot of it. There is a lot of it. Book 1 is really spicy. Book 2 is definitely more character driven because we've kind of got through all of the plot in book 1, and this is definitely way more character driven. It is why I choose romance, and it is MMFMM, I believe, which means you have male-male scenes, male-female scenes, and things like that. Like, so if you have MFM, That's like the males, they're not doing the deed together. It's just them and the girl. But like with MFM and anything like that in these books, that means that they're two males. There are also scenes with them as well, without the girl. So that does include this in this, because I think one of the couples in this are gay. In fact, I think they're all either bisexual or gay in this, to be honest, apart from Jess. So yeah, so you have all of that, and that brings in as well, this book is a lot deeper than just like a really, really, really spicy why choose romance, because it also brings into play like family dynamics, being accepted by society, being accepted by the family, the difficulties that they've had growing up, and obviously being bullied for just being who they are. I don't know what it is, but I love the whole like classic car and like working in a garage or whatever kind of vibe, and that kind of has this in it. There's like car racing scenes and scenes where they're like working on cars in the workshop and stuff, and I love that. I love it so much. It reminds me of like the Ravenhood series. You kind of have that element in here too, and it's basically just about Jessica having the confidence to just truly be who she is with all her boys. But it's like, it's so beautifully written, the character work is amazing, and it's insanely spicy, and the spicy scenes go on for like chapters and chapters. If you read the Dare first, that is the best way for you to realise what you're getting yourself in for. The second book, like I say, is not as spicy, but I truly think the story, if you take the spice out of it, the story is so good, and I'm literally obsessed with them. And Manson is one of my favourite MMCs ever. I loved him so much. I just loved watching her connection with them, and yeah, it does explore like BDSM and all that kind of stuff. Like when I tell you it's spicy, it is spicy. There is an extensive content warning list with these books. But aside from that, I feel like she balanced the plot. Like Harley Larie is one of my favourite authors, and she really balanced the plot and the spice really well in this. But it is, if you haven't read that much spice, this would be overwhelming, to say the least. But it's really good, and it's so well written. It is incredibly well written, and compared to like some of the other books that I've read, like Her Soul to Take, I didn't love that. I think I gave it like 3 stars. The writing in that was nowhere near up to the standard that you get in this duet. But yeah, high levels of spice, but also incredible story and plot. Love it. Okay, now next is a book that I don't really feel like I see get spoken about a lot, and I read this about, again, I think like 3 years ago, and it's Heartless Heathens by Santana Knox. This again is another why choose spicy romance with a lot of like religious connotation to it. Well, actually it's like a dystopian-esque world. So basically in this world, the government I think has fallen, and the churches have risen and have kind of taken over. So it is quite religious. It does kind of have that religious trauma trope in it, like that micro trope, which I know isn't for everybody. I think it's the same thing as like That Sick Love by Jessie Hall. So if you're not into that, then you probably wouldn't be into this. This is the only book that I feel like I've read that has that in it. I haven't read That Sick Love yet, even though I've had it for so long. And basically there's this girl, and she is being held captive, kind of like essentially in the top of this church tower, and these 3 boys, I believe there's 2 twin brothers, and it's either their cousin or their friend, find her up there and take her captive for themselves. And they are tattooed, scary, intimidating, and she is a virgin. She literally has not experienced this type of world. She's extremely sheltered. She has literally lived in a room in the top of like a church tower or something her whole entire life, and she's extremely sheltered, and she finds these 3 boys, and it is so spicy. There are twin brothers in this as well, so you kind of do have like a taboo element, because yes, they do all share her. And there are scenes, like there's this scene in the graveyard, and I can't even say that stuff on the internet, to be completely honest with you. It is insanely spicy, and it's that kind of dark romance spice where it's dark and depraved. It's super dark and depraved, and it is a little bit like, what are you reading? This kind of spice, I can't read it all the time. I've not read many books like this. There is another duet that I'm going to recommend to you guys in a minute, which is kind of similar to this, but really spicy. But honestly, like Sonny, I remember Sonny's character in this so well. I absolutely loved him. And also the character development. I can't remember the girl's name. Romina, that's it, Romina. So her character development in this is absolutely insane. She goes from this girl who was hidden in the top of a room, boxed away for her whole entire life, to the girl she is at the end of the book is absolutely it's amazing, the character development from her in this, which is why I enjoy books like this still, because yeah, okay, it's crazy, but the actual storytelling, the character work, still really good. Santana Knox, I think, is a bit of an underrated author as well. This is the only book of hers that I've read. I don't think she has an extensive backlist. But based off of this, I mean, I read this 3 years ago, and I actually do still think it crosses my mind quite often when I'm thinking about really spicy books. But yeah, if you want a dark romance, why choose extremely spicy, and you haven't read Heartless Heathens yet, what are you doing? Next is a duet that I read this year, and it's a dark rockstar romance. And when I tell you that I did not know rockstar romance could get this dark, I was really severely underprepared for what I was about to read in this Gods of Tomorrow duet by Elle Mitchell. So the first book is Pretty Poisoned, and the second book is The Road to Ruined. Okay, I think in terms of like rockstar romances where they're like touring and writing music together and going like backstage and things like that, not one of those kind of rockstar romances. Basically Tegan, our FMC, she has like a crime podcast or something, and she believes that the girls that go on tour with the Gods of Tomorrow band, weird things happen to them. Some of the girls die, some of the girls go missing, never to be seen again, and it's kind of like a cult-like situation, and she thinks that the guys in the band are responsible for what's happening to these girls. So she goes backstage one day and tries to get on tour with them. She's like, hey, like, I think she pretends, she definitely doesn't own up to the fact that she has like a true crime podcast or anything, and basically ends up going on tour with them. And what happens to her while she's on tour with these boys, it is so dark. This is one of the darkest books that I've ever read as well. So not only the spiciest, but also the darkest. But when I tell you that how can I put this? The context of the spice in this series is extremely dark. Like I say, it's very cult-like. There's some kinks in here that if you're squeamish, that's the only way I can put it, and you don't like blood, you will probably not enjoy this book. But then if you like that and you have one of those kinks, listen, you do you. That's fine by me. You'll love this book. But also, look, it's fiction at the end of the day. You know, you need to take everything with a pinch of salt. These are literally words on paper. It's not that deep. But is it a really dark book? Yes, it is. And it just basically follows Tegan with these people in the band. And again, there are two brothers in this. One of the brothers is super unhinged. The other brother is really reserved and put together, but genuinely like a sociopath, if not psychopath, like, but actually like clinically. That's how dark this book is. So it's really good though. I think I gave them like both 3.75 stars. I think maybe a little bit too dark for me, a little bit too traumatic. Everyone in this book has a lot of trauma and it is really deep, but the spice is crazy, and there is also FF scenes, so female scenes, just the two girls. There's also those scenes in here as well. They are in like a polyamorous sort of group. You have like the people that follow their group, which is definitely more of a cult. They just kind of like all share each other there. It's very polyamorous. So there are scenes with Tegan and like one of the other girls and stuff. I was not expecting that when I was going into this at all. I didn't hate it. It was maybe leaning a little bit too dark and spicy for me, to be completely honest, but I didn't hate it. Let's just put it that way. And if you're into that, you will devour this series. And it is quite gripping. The actual plot is really gripping. The first book ends on a really big cliffhanger, and you have to pick up the second book and find out what happens. Next up, some of the most recent reads that I've finished, but the Court of Ravens duology, which is a dark romantasy, by the way. I didn't know that fantasies and romances could be this dark and spicy, to be completely honest. So the first book is Feathers So Vicious, the second book is Shadows So Cruel. I think I gave both of them 4 stars. I actually haven't I read these this month, so a more extensive review of these will come in my reading wrap up for August. But yeah, this is about shadow daddies. So we've got shadow magic, shadow daddies, and shifters, raven shifters. This is set in a world where humans and ravens have had this long-standing like political war going on between them. They don't get on, they don't treat each other very nicely. And our FMC, Galantia, in this, she basically gets captured and taken captive into the Court of Ravens. She's human, they're raven, and they shift into what's called an unkindness of ravens, where there's 5 of them, and then one of the ravens within the 5 holds their power, which is called the Anoa, and they can have all sorts of different powers, like some are pathfinders, death weavers, voids. There's all sorts of different powers that you can have. Some are like more rare than others. And she basically finds herself stuck in the Court of Ravens, and she has grown up being told that they are awful, awful people and you don't want to be around them. And she's believed all these stories and like essentially propaganda against them her whole entire life, and she finds herself tied up with Sebian and Malia. Now this is a why choose, but it's not a why choose romance. I'm not going to spoil it, but do with that what you will. A romance, I'm just going to put it out there, needs a happy ever after. This isn't a why choose romance, but it is why choose choose, is polyamorous. She doesn't have to choose between them to be happy. I would say, again, this is one of those books where the spice is one of those typical dark romance spices where the content warnings are probably something you want to read. Didn't like Malia, I think that's how you say his name, Malia's character. I liked Sebian a lot. In fact, he was like the saving grace to me in this book. I do just feel like Malia doesn't know the meaning of consent in this, and that is something that sometimes is explored in a dark romance, but this is what people mean when they say that this romantasy is super dark. He does some really unforgivable things, and to be honest, I didn't find him redeemable enough by the end of the second book. That being said, in terms of the fantasy and magic system, really liked it. The spice was spicing. The group scenes between the three of them, and it's funny because actually like a lot of these spicy books just tend to be a lot of white chooses, which I think just comes naturally with that genre. But yeah, the spicy scenes in this, obviously they share her, and there's a lot of if you know where I'm going with that. Look, if you read a lot of wide shoes, you'll know exactly what I mean when I do this. Because I'm not going to say it out loud. I feel like I don't know who's going to click on this and watch it. So if anybody's watching this who like actually knows me outside of like the book world, welcome. I do not read this stuff all the time. But yeah, definitely 5 out of 5 for the spice. I didn't think it was going to be spicy. I thought it was just going to be really dark. No. Really spicy. So if you're a fantasy girl and you want something really spicy, then you need to read The Court of Ravens Duet. It's really good. Sticking on the theme of fantasy quickly, because it's not actually the only other fantasy I've got, but my other ones are obviously vampire romances. But sticking on the theme of fantasy, we have Kiss of the Basilisk. I know I'm holding up a book that says Split or Swallow. It's been traditionally published under the name of Kiss of the Basilisk now, because look, you cannot walk into Waterstones and have Split or Swallow on the shelves, probably. I'm guessing that's why they renamed it. I don't even know, because I mean, I personally love the name, but I guess maybe a bit of a red flag to have, you know, next to the under 13 section in Waterstones. So this is a book about basilisk shifters, and again, very similar kind of premise to Court of Ravens, where the humans and the basilisk, humans and ravens, whatever, they don't get on. But this book is so wild to the point where it's like, somehow along the way, and I did do a review on this back at the beginning of the year when I read it, where I said I don't think the world building was the best, but somewhere along the way, the basilisks have ended up essentially like sex slaves for the humans, and they have to teach 20 girls, and there's like, each girl has their own basilisk shifter, and they have to teach her please the prince, essentially, and how to like seduce him and, you know, be what he needs in the bedroom. It's honestly, the story is so crazy. And then in this, I think the FMC is either called Temperance, I believe, but we just call her Tem. Cassian is Tem's basilisk, but Cassian is just such a 10 out of 10 MMC. I love him so much. Cassian is the basilisk, Tem is the FMC, and then Leo is the prince. And there's kind of like a love triangle situation between her, the prince, and the basilisk. I actually cannot even say out loud what happens in this book in terms of the spice. I think you just need to read it. It's a little bit like when I say with Credence, I think you should read it if only for the experience, even if you end up not liking it. That's how I feel about this book. It truly is one of the craziest things I've ever read in my whole entire life, and it is so spicy, but the spice is like, what's going on right now? Because also there's magic involved, and he does these things. I can't even say it, but it's, just take my word for it that this probably is the spiciest book I've ever read in my whole entire life, but I still gave it 4 stars because it was actually really good. Okay, next, back onto the dark romance. This is the Lord series by Chantal Tessier, and I've only read 3 books in the series, which is these 3. So I've read Sabotage, which is a novella. I actually believe, if I remember correctly, this was published first, but if you want to read it in order, I believe this is 4th book in the Lord series, but this is a novella. And then The Ritual and The Sacrifice, and this is academic setting, amongst the elite, you know, the privileged kids, a college kind of setting, and there's a secret society which is called the Lords, and they go to, like, is it Barrington University if I remember correctly? And you only really go to Barrington University if your family or you somehow have ties to the Lords, like, which is a secret society. And the secret society itself is insanely dark, but like the spice, and not just, so the storylines are dark anyway, but the spice just keeps coming and coming and coming. Pardon the pun. It does not stop in these books. In fact, it's like mildly relentless, and sometimes you just need a break from just how dark and depraved these books are. But still to this day, Sin in this, he's called Eastern Sinnet, a little bit too intense for me. Kind of scary, but like not the good scary, like the bad scary. Riot Archer, I mean, I kind of love him. I kind of love him. The Sinner is definitely darker than The Ritual, but I think The Ritual is spicier than The Sinner. I just think this book overall just feels darker and spicier, and there's just a lot more. This book is just so messed up. But The Ritual, super spicy. There's multiple scenes in this. Again, a book I read 3 years ago. The bathroom scene, there's a scene in the woods, there's a scene in like a cabin. I remember them all clear as day. Like, literally, this book is super spicy. And the spice, again, for me, like, I find when you read like high spice books, the scenes aren't just like for a paragraph or a page. It's like pages and pages, or if not a whole entire chapter. That's when you know you're in trouble and it's going to be 5 out of 5. But yeah, I do really recommend this series if you are a dark romance lover, even if you don't care for the spice, because if I take the spice out of it, I actually really enjoy the plot of these books. It is quite dark, but it's really good. Okay, so next up, some vampire romances. So the first book is Blood Orange by Karina Howe. Now this is kind of part of like, I don't think she markets them as interconnected standalones, but there are a couple books that she has released that all follow the same characters across the same world. This is the Dracula duet, so you have Blood Orange and Black Rose. Then you have the Dark Eyes duet, which is Black Sunshine and The Blood is Love, and then Night Wolf, which is a spin-off. They all follow the same characters, but it kind of starts off here with the Dracula duet. Black Rose, not really that spicy, but I just thought I'd mention these are a duology. You need to read these together, otherwise you won't finish the books, like the story. But Blood Orange, this follows Valtu, who is kind of funny because she kind of does this really funny take on the fact that Valtu is the vampire that Bram Stoker based Dracula off of. And they kind of joke about it in this series, and it's kind of funny, and I kind of like it's a bit tongue-in-cheek because he is basically Bram Stoker's Dracula, and they kind of laugh and say like, about how inaccurate and stuff the book and stuff. It's kind of funny. But anyway, so Blood Orange, again, I just feel like vampire romance, it can't not be spicy because obviously it involves, you know, feeding and biting and all that kind of stuff, and vampires are obviously known to be like super strong and super fast, and you know, they're throwing each other around and all that stuff. It's just super spicy. But this in particular, they're also known for being quite promiscuous and pretty polyamorous, and that's where the spice levels come from. But this is probably one of the spiciest vampire romances that I've personally read, and it's really good as well. This was also a 5-star read for me, and I really truly recommend it. It's the only reincarnation trope I've ever read and enjoyed, and also I just love the world. I think this begins in like Vienna. It's got like a secret society with like witch hunters, vampire hunters, there's like a secret identity, teacher-student kind of romance, all the best tropes in this that just make it feel really spicy and forbidden, and I love this book so much. And then staying on the theme of vampire romance, Court of the Vampire Queen by Katie Robert. Now I'm going to be completely honest, this is literally all spice and not really much plot at all. You've got shifters, there's 3 men in this, I think. Honestly, I read this book like, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago now. I think there's 3 or 4 men. They can shift into like all different types of things. They hold the FMC, what is her name? Mina. They hold Mina captive in this, and I think she's human or like half-blood. I can't quite remember. It's honestly, if you just want straight up smut, you need to read this book. It's really spicy, but I actually really enjoyed it because I just love vampire romance. So if that's what you enjoy, then you need to read this. But there's kind of like this, again, the politics, like humans against the vampires. Mina's taken captive. I think her father, I'm really trying to draw from my memory here. I think her father is like, they're kind of like fighting or against him, and then Mina ends up like on their side. Don't quote me on this, I'm really trying to remember, but I can remember a lot of spicy scenes in this. Like there's this bedroom scene. I mean, obviously there's a bedroom scene in like most books, but there's a scene in this book that is in my mind, like rent-free. It is super deliciously spicy, and it is kind of fun as well for a dark vampire romance. But yeah, I do see the bad reviews saying that there's just no plot to this at all. And there is a plot, she just doesn't really focus on it that much. Okay, on to the last 2. So Satan's Affair by H.D. Carlton. This is leaning towards horror erotica, which I did not know going into it, but this is Sibby's book. So if you've read The Cat and Mouse Duet, you'll be familiar with who Sibby is. And this is, you need to read this before The Cat and Mouse Duet. If you've already read it and you go back to reading this book is not going to hit the same, but you probably should, just so that you can get some kind of backstory for Sibby, like a bit more of it. But if you haven't read it yet, and you haven't read The Cat and Mouse Duet, please read this first. It basically follows Sibby. When she was growing up, her father was super religious, but it came alongside like abuse, and she grew up in this church, but it was kind of like an abusive church. She runs away and escapes and ends up literally living in, you know, these like haunted house rides, and they just travel from town to town. She lives in a haunted house. I'm not joking. She lives in it, and she has these friends and these 4 men in the book, and it is a white choose again, but it's a white choose with a crazy twist. And when I say that some of the spiciness is actually leaning on a bit gory, that's why I feel like horror erotica, you could put this into that genre ever so slightly. I have not read any books like that, so if they are anything like this, but like true to that trope, I don't know if that's going to be my cup of tea. I'd love to try it one day, but this book is probably like the wildest. This and Split and Swallow, but this one just comes with the eerie feeling, and like it's scary and it's extremely gory. But I just really love ZV, and I think it's only a novella, it's really short, so if it terrifies you and traumatizes you, it's fine. It's only like 90 pages, so it's not that deep. And the last one is Hunt Me Darling, and this is a MFM stalker / serial killer romance. And this is very similar in terms of the vibes, not storyline or writing or anything. It's not really kind of in the same ballpark as the Mindfuck series, but the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. If you like that kind of like FBI agent, stalker, serial killer, criminologist, like all that kind of stuff, you would really enjoy this, because it's very similar to that. It's just way less serious and way more spicy, super spicy. And this basically follows Truth and Dare, and then I can't remember Alexandra Darling, that's it. Alex in this book, she is a profiler, an FBI profiler, and she's obviously on a case, and she gets stalked by these 2 men called Truth and Dare, who are much closer to the case than she realises. And she also learns a lot about herself, about how depraved her sexual preferences really are. And there's lots of stuff in there, like being chased through the woods and scenes where they're sharing her and just like crazy stuff. It was way spicier than I was expecting. I read this in a 24-hour reading challenge right at the start of the year, and I just remember reading it thinking, anybody who loves a spicy dark romance needs to read this. I think it's underrated for that genre. And yeah, it's just insane. It's book 1 out of 3 of an interconnected series, and I've got the 2nd book and I'm going to get the 3rd. I really enjoyed it. So if you enjoy that kind of dark romance, but you want lots of spice and you want it to be MFM, you need to read Hunt Me Darling. And also Truth and Dare are just kind of, I like them, you know? They're just kind of great. They shouldn't be, they're such walking red flags, but at this point we're like 4 years deep into dark romance. The lines are so blurred. But there we go. So these are the books that just came to mind immediately. I'm sure I could probably find more, but these are the books that came straight to mind that I feel like are the spiciest books that I've ever read. So if you take any recommendations from this, know what you're getting yourself into. I really hope that you enjoy yourself. And also if you've got any recommendations for books that you think are really spicy that I haven't read yet, then let me know in the comments down below. And this is actually going to be one of my last, I think this might be the last, if not one of the last videos I'm filming in this room, because I am moving house next week. Make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss any of the moving content and the vlogs that are going to be upcoming. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I'll see you guys in my next one.